So what is cultural anthropology? It is a systematic and holistic study of human cultures, societies and behaviors. So how it studies? By employing qualitative research methods such as participant observation and ethnography. Why it studies? To explore the complex interplay of customs, beliefs, social structures and everyday practices within the diverse cultural context. Let's try to understand what are the key focus areas that a cultural anthropologist is interested in studying. One of the areas where cultural anthropologists are interested in studying is the social organization. So what is a social organization? I'll give you an analogy. Imagine a human body and it is made up of various subparts like the head, the limbs, etc. So the whole subparts will make an entire organism. Similarly, consider a society. Society is made up of various subparts like social institutions, which include family, political organizations, educational organizations, or religious organizations, etc. Also, it includes social groups. So, all this together has to interwork to make the society function effectively. We can consider society as a social organization here. I hope you would have understood. So, how this key focus area of anthropology is correlated with our syllabus? In paper 1, 2.2, we'll be studying the nature of society and various social institutions and social groups associated with it. Another key area where cultural anthropologists are interested in studying is the different social institutions. So they might study a society as a separate entity, or they might dwell in deeper and they might look into different social institutions to understand the different cultural values and beliefs of a society. So the different social institutions are marriage, family, kinship, economic organizations, and there are political as well as religious organizations. So anthropologists study all these organizations to understand the society better. These social institutions are covered under our UPSC syllabus, chapter 2, 3, 4 and 5. So we will be dealing with this in the upcoming lectures in detail. Another major area where cultural anthropologists are interested in studying is culture. So what does culture mean? It includes shared beliefs, values, customs, practices, even behaviors, symbols, and it also includes material things. The question is, why cultural anthropologists are interested in studying culture? It is because culture shapes an individual identities, behaviors, and social interactions. So, for a society to exist, culture is very important. So that's why cultural anthropologists are very interested in studying culture. So how it is correlated with our syllabus? In syllabus 2.1 of paper 1, we'll be studying the nature of culture topic. We'll be discussing more about culture in detail when we go through this syllabus part. Another area where cultural anthropologists are interested is to study the change of culture over a period of time and how different communities have adapted. They are interested in studying what are the factors that affected the cultural change. For example, urbanization, industrialization, or the feminist movements, etc. And they'll also study in correlation with the social institutions such as family, or for that case, economic system or political system. So this part will be dealing in our syllabus 2.3 under marriage. So far, we have seen what cultural anthropologists are primarily interested in studying. But the key question is, what is the purpose of studying? So, the first one is to make a cross-cultural analysis. That is, they study different cultures and they'll try to make draw a generalization and to produce a theory. For example, in the upcoming lecture series, we might be studying about anthropological theories in syllabus 6. So there we'll be discussing about Tyler and Morgan. So what they have done is, they have studied different cultures and they have tried to portray the cultural evolution. How different cultures have evolved over time. So this is one of the key purpose of cultural anthropologists. The second one, they need to understand human diversity and cultural diversity. They try to document and preserve different cultures across the world. The third key factor is that we have seen in the objectives of anthropology, one of the major objectives was to apply the knowledge for social good. That is applied anthro. Whatever the findings they have found through their ethnographic research, they try to apply those knowledges for the betterment of the society. Finally, they are also concerned about education and public awareness of different cultures. This will promote intercultural understanding. So these are the main purpose of cultural anthropologists and why they are keen in studying the different areas which we have seen earlier. Next, we will be discussing how cultural anthropology as a discipline has evolved over time. The discipline started during the late 1700s when European explorers and colonial administrators started to document different indigenous cultures. Later, during 1830s and 1840s, August Comte coined the term sociology. It marked the recognition of the need to study human societies systematically. It was during the 1850s and the late 1800s that the study of culture and cultural evolution started, majorly because of Louis Henry Morgan, Edward Taylor, and James Fraser through their different works. For example, Louis Henry Morgan's work on systems of consanguinity and affinity of the human family, and Edward Taylor's primitive culture, and Fraser's the Golden Bough. These works contributed to the study of culture and cultural evolution during the late 1800s. Later, during the 1900s, from 1910 to 1920, new research methods were added to the field. For example, Franz Boas insisted on the importance of fieldwork and cultural relativism. Followingly, students of Boas, such as Margaret Mead and Ruth Benedict, contributed to the development of cultural anthropology by focusing on the study of cultures and societies through participant observation and ethnography. After 1940s and 50s, cultural anthropology has expanded its scope into various fields. For example, cultural ecology was propounded by Julian Stewart, which emphasized the relationship between culture and environment. Later, during 1950s and 60s, structural functionalism was propounded by A.R. Radcliffe Brown. It emphasized that cultural practices contribute to the overall stability and function of a society. During 1960s, cultural materialism theory was propounded by Marvell Harris. It examined how cultural beliefs and practices were able to serve the material needs of a society. During 1970s and 80s, symbolical anthropology was propounded by Clifford Geertz, which emphasized the importance of symbols and meanings in understanding culture. Anthropology has expanded its field to study the impacts of globalization and digital spaces on human lives. In the previous slide, while discussing the evolution of cultural anthropology, we have seen different theories propounded by different anthropologists. Namely, we have seen about Taylor, Morgan, and Fraser, and we have also seen Boas, and we have also seen about Radcliffe Brown, and Ruth Benedict and Mead. We have seen they are students of Franz Boas, and also we have seen Harris, cultural materialism, and we have seen symbolism of Clifford Geertz. We have seen cultural ecology concept of Julian Stewart. So all these things we'll be discussing under chapter 6 anthropological theories in detail. So the next thing which we are going to discuss is what are the approaches and methods used in cultural anthropology. One is participant observation, ethnographic fieldwork, we have discussed in the previous slides itself, then interviews and surveys, then cross-cultural comparison. I don't think I need to explain it again. We have seen in the first lecture about these things and their meanings in detail. The next topic which we are going to discuss is the emerging trends in cultural anthropology. Cultural anthropology has evolved and broadened its scope to include various subfields such as environmental anthropology, which studies the relation between man and environment. Next, visual anthropology, which tries to preserve culture by creating films, photo, or multimedia presentations. Next subfield is urban anthropology, which focuses on cities. Next one is digital anthropology, which tries to examine the implication of technology on social structures, relationships, or communications, or individual's identity, etc. There are many more emerging subfields, but I have given you a glimpse. Next, we'll discuss the relevance of cultural anthropology. Firstly, the knowledge of cultural anthropology helps in addressing different social issues by promoting cultural sensitivity. Anthropologists study different cultures and they document different beliefs, practices, cultures, etc. This knowledge of cultures provides a foundation for recognizing and respecting cultural differences. In a multi-diverse country like India, we have different socio-cultural issues. For example, beef ban or else Jallikattu issue or hijab issue. All these issues can be amicably solved when one can understand different cultures and respect cultural differences. And anthropology provides a knowledge base for this. Next, cultural anthropologists can effectively aid in conflict resolution because they are the ones who can identify the historical context, if any, which has been the cause for the conflict, or they can identify the different stereotypes that has been the reason for the conflict, or they can identify the power structures or any institutions for conflict resolution. Also, they can suggest culturally sensitive approaches for mediation. By drawing on cross-cultural studies on conflict resolution. Only a cultural anthropologist will have a deeper understanding of a society, and that's why he is able to find if there are any historical contexts or any stereotypes that is associated with the violence. Case study, you can use this case study. Another area where cultural anthropology can aid is in the preservation of Indian culture. For example, visual anthropology can document and preserve cultures that are in the dying stage. One such example is the Beniputal glove puppet of Bengal that has been documented through visual anthropology by Nabakumar of Anthropological Survey of India. He has delineated a dying folk art tradition of Bengal. Next, cultural anthropology can contribute to policy development by providing in-depth ethnographic research on social, cultural, and economic dynamics. It contributes to evidence-based policy making that considers the diverse cultural context of different communities. For this, you can consider the case study of RT Act 2009, where it has provisions to teach in mother tongue and also to add different customs and traditions of indigenous communities. This has been done to provide effective and accessible education to all. It also helps us to understand the impact of globalization, a recent phenomenon, and how it impacts the exchange of ideas, practices, and values among different societies. For example, I would like to quote the Me Too movement. This has been popularized in India. It's majorly because of the globalization, and this has impacted the power structures between men and women in a society as well as family. So, by studying this impacts of globalization, anthropology could provide us an advanced knowledge about the course of evolution of any institutions or society in advance. Now, let's discuss some of the anthropologists related to this field, cultural anthropology. First anthropologist whom we are going to see is Margaret Mead, and her famous work is Coming of Age in Samoa. This work challenges the concept universality of culture given by earlier anthropologists. I'll just give you a very brief knowledge about this, but we'll discuss this in detail when we discuss the anthropological theories. This work, she studied the adolescence in Samoan children and she compared with the Western society. She observed that the adolescence period has been more smooth in the Samoans compared to the Western societies. So this is the one. We'll see the next anthropologist. Malinowski. His famous work is The Argonauts of the Western Pacific. So here he was able to identify how a simple economic system of reciprocity is helping that culture to integrate much better and to provide solidarity. So that is the basic information about this. Again, we will discuss about this in very detail in the upcoming lectures. The next anthropologist is Ruth Benedict. We have seen her while discussing the definition of anthropology, and she defined anthropology as the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safer for human differences. I hope you remember her famous work was Patterns of Culture, where she was able to find out that different personalities are product of different cultures. A very basic example which I can give, consider a family which is very abusive and violent towards children. How the nature of the personality of the child will be, he'll be more depressed and he might be violent, etc. Similarly, compare a family which raises the child with more love, care, and joy, and his personality will be totally different to this personality. So that's what she has figured out, and again we'll see this in detail when we discuss the theories, and it will be very interesting. Also, I thought of showcasing you some of the prominent Indian cultural anthropologists. One such person is M. N. Srinivas, who is known for his famous work, The Remembered Village. In this work, he has described the concept of Sanskritization, as well as he has extensively discussed about the caste system in the Rampura village, Karnataka. One more woman anthropologist who has worked on culture is Veena Das. Her famous work is Critical Events, an anthropological perspective on contemporary India. In this work, she has discussed extensively on the contemporary India and issues such as Bhopal gas tragedy, plus communal violence within India during that time, etc. One of the reasons for showcasing you the various anthropologists and their work is to make you understand how this field is much broad, how and what are the areas they are focusing and they are working on. So this is the major reason why I am showcasing you the various anthropologists in this section. Another anthropologist whom we are going to see is Leela Dubey, and she is better known for her work Women and Kinship, a comparative perspective on gender in South and Southeast Asia. It is a cross-cultural analysis. In this work, she has explored how kinship structures such as family organization or marriage or descent rules impact or influence women's status, roles, and relationships. So it is majorly a study on women and their status and role in society based on kinship structures. We have discussed the scope of anthropology in detail. Also, while discussing, we were able to relate to the UPSC syllabus part of it. Similarly, in the upcoming lectures, we'll discuss the other subfields in detail. Thank you so much.